Hello everybody, it's Briggsell here, and I'm playing Beyond Earth, the new Civilization game. Now let's just get the bad bit out of the way for this video. I'm playing it in 1920 by 1080, but I'm playing it in windowed mode. There's a reason behind this, is because when I press the full screen button, I can't actually find my resolution. So I can't find my native resolution, which is 1920 by 1080. I can't find it. You can see for yourselves. I can find 1600 by 900 and all the other ones that you would normally expect, except the one that I actually want to use, which is 1920 by 1080. All the options are on high. I don't use VSync. Threaded rendering, I have no idea what that is. Straight away, I use it 4 times MSAA. Don't really need anything more than that. It is Civilization. Here are some of the more options. I'm not going to go into any details about these because they are pretty self-explanatory. So let's just kind of get that out of the way. There's some form of bug in regards to people's graphics cards or monitors or something like this. I've got a relatively new graphics card. I've got 970. It's possible that they don't support the 970's resolution to a certain degree, although there was a recent Nvidia patch for their drivers, so seems a bit silly. Anyway, that's the bad stuff out of the way. Let's move on to the good stuff. So I'm playing it on Mercury because I'm an absolute noob. I'm playing it on epic speed, and I always select random for my stuff. Here you can see the sponsors. Now sponsors is basically your faction, what you're going to choose. I have started to go random, although my first game I played with Pan Asian Cooperative because I like fast worker speeds. I've also played as Pol Australia, which is they're all about trade, and they are really good if you want to make a lot of money. Colonists, I always go with random, but they're pretty straightforward. Spacecraft, pretty straightforward as well. It's exactly what it says on the tin, basically. And this is the cargo, which is pretty straightforward also. And then we have planets that you can choose. You can do random, you can do choose a planet. I always put random because I like the RNG type of nature of the game. So let's start, shall we? So this is a game that a lot of people have wondered why they've brought it out as a standalone game, because not much visually has changed. Obviously the style of the game is very similar to Civilization 5, but generally the artistic style has remained the same. Because it's set in space and new planets and such, the artworks had to change because they've needed to add different landscapes and such, more alien landscapes as it were. One thing you do that is good though is you get to choose where you want to put your base to begin with, which I think is a really good feature. I'm going to put it there, and I'm starting as the Frenchies. Looks like I've spawned with a unit, and I spawned with an explorer, so I'm going to send the explorer off to do some stuff. I'm going to fortify my unit, and here we are in the game. It looks like someone's just painted over Civilization 5, to be honest. The HUD has changed, the heads-up display, or the GUI, the GUI, graphics user interface, has changed. You've got a lot of different resources. You've got this thing, the culture's very similar to the old country. You've got health instead of happiness. You've got energy instead of gold. Research is science, obviously. You've got the research kind of thing here, which I will get into a little bit later on, but for now I'm just going to select a bunch of the starter ones. You've got production, obviously. start there. This is the screen that looks almost exactly the same as the Civilization screen. And yeah, it's unfortunately for a new game, they've used a lot of assets from Civilization 5. I mean, in a way, that's a good thing because they know it works, it's practical, it looked good, that's absolutely fine. But for me, when I buy a new game, I kind of expect to get a new game. That would be nice. So yeah. Anyway, this green misty stuff that you see in here, this is called miasma. I have no idea what it is, but if you put your units in it, your units will start to die. So you don't want to do that until later on, where you can actually get rid of the stuff, or you can be immune to it, or at least your workers can be immune to it. Also, the resources you see, you got fire axite, you've got a fungus plantation that you can build there, silica, you've got fruit, you've got tubers, whatever they are. You've got float stone, which is like it's like iron or something like that. And you've got a variety of other stuff. Titanium is one of them that you can get. You can get stuff called xenomass, which is basically what the alien stuff's all about. The aliens in this, the random aliens, are basically the barbarians of Civilization 5. I have taken the animation off for the other nations or sponsors, as they're called, to drop in, so I don't have to wait for them to drop in. You can also take the staggered approach off. I like the staggered approach because it gives you the element as if you're in the lead, which you're not. They catch up. They've got like catch-up logic, which allows them to catch up fairly sharpish. So they're not disadvantaged, as it were. And you'll notice that I've just gone over a resource pod. Resource pods are basically like villages in Civilization 5, where you get a little bonus to certain things. I got a solar collector, which allows me to launch this thing into orbit. What it does is it gives me a bonus to my energy when it's in orbit. The orbit stuff is a little disappointing. I thought the orbit stuff, it would zoom out of the planet and you'd be able to place things from a planet view, whereas orbit actually only zooms out a little bit. That's as far as it goes. In fact, that's as far as it both goes on both views, which is a little disappointing. But that's the way of the world, unfortunately. There is another person. They're the Russians, basically. Might as well call them the Russians. They're not actually the Russians, but you might as well call them that. And essentially, that is the game. There's not much else to it, apart from one really good idea that they've had. This is the research, or the science screen. You research all these kind of stuff, and by researching some of these things, you get points to put in the harmony, purity, and supremacy levels. That dictates how well your units will upgrade and how well you are received from other nations. So, for instance, if you go down the harmony route, you'll unlock levels, and those levels will give you different stuff. In fact, all of them do such a thing. All of them require a different resource. So that supremacy requires fire axite, which is a nice little play on the name of the company that makes this game. Floatstone for purity, and xenomass for harmony. That gives you an idea of what's going on. But I like the idea of having tiered research. So you unlock a specific branch, and it unlocks a couple more things that unlock a couple more buildings and such, and gives you bonuses in a certain way. To be honest, I've played about 15 hours of this game. I've played through it 4 times, I'd say, and I recently just started a 5th time, and the buildings don't mean anything to me. They are literally, if I see one building's got that gives you a bonus in research or science, then I'll choose it. I won't even read the name of the building. I don't even give a shit about the name of the building. I will just choose it based on that. Which I think's a little disappointing, because you'd want to know what some of these buildings do. Like, for instance, the clinic. Clinic is very straightforward. It gives you science and it gives you health, which is pretty straightforward. But later on down the line, you're unlocking things that you have no idea what the hell they're on, because obviously they've been made up, or at least they're based on some future stuff, which in my terms means it's made up bullshit. But that's the way it goes, really. Anyway, let me just load a previous save game. I've called it Boobs because that's the way I roll. I am playing the Commonwealth of the Pacific, or the what was the name? I can't remember. The bloody Australians, basically. And we'll see what it looks like a little bit further on. This one's probably about 100 or so turns in. No, in fact 250 turns in. You can see I've got 3 areas. I'm not doing too bad. I'm top of the leaderboard. This is obviously still on Mercury difficulty, so I'm not exactly getting owned or anything. And you know, I'm excited about this so far. I've got different levels in my purity and supremacy things, which is giving me bonuses. One thing I haven't shown you is the virtues. The virtues are basically the same as kind of the culture points that you put in Civilization 5. They give you bonuses if you complete a certain group. This is a little bit different though. This gives you, if you choose a holy might kind of civilization and you put points into this, you get bonuses for that. But if you put more into each tier, you get the bonuses as well. So you can get to choose a free virtue, you can get production in your capital and energy and such, and new technology, another technology. There's also Covert Ops, which I haven't shown you yet, but we'll come to that in a minute. I'll also show you the units, because units play a little bit differently to what they do in Civilization 5. So Covert Ops, at a certain point in time, you will get the option to create a national security project. I think it's called Spy Network or something like that. Let me just... what's it called? It's called... Spy Agency. Okay, it's called a Spy Agency. You get a bunch of spies and then you can do such and such with them. You can send them to your own places, you can send them to enemy places, and if you open the Covert Ops area, you'll see that there are now these diamonds or these squares underneath each place. That means that their kind of level, intrigue level, is up, which means that you can do more if you're in those cities. So for instance, if I went to Prosperity, right down here, Prosperity, I'd be able to do level 1 stuff, or Mandira, I'd be able to do level 1 stuff. The higher the level, the dangerous the stuff becomes. So for instance, at level 2 you can start trying to steal technologies, and at level 3 you can try and get a unit to defect from that nation, and so on and so forth. It's a very nice little kind of side game, as it were. I really don't like it, but then again, I never liked the spy stuff or the covert stuff in Civilization 5. That's just my personal opinion. I know a lot of people obviously like that sort of stuff. We also have these unit upgrades. So each nation that you use starts with a standard set of units: combat rover, gunboat, missile rover, rangers, soldiers, and tac jets. They're all the same for every group. They upgrade depending on your technology. So if you build a technology that unlocks the armor, that's great. What happens is that it's not really based on the technology, it's based on the affinity. So the more technology you get and the more levels of affinity you get, the more they will upgrade. For instance, this combat rover will upgrade to armor after I get to a level of affinity of level 3 of any of the levels. If I then get, say, 8 in Purity, I'll be able to unlock the Lancer. If I get 8 in Harmony, I'll be able to unlock the Viper. I can't do both, I can only choose one. It really depends. Some of the units that you may find later on in the game, further on when you've got higher levels of affinity, you'll be able to unlock special units. So if you go down a Harmony route, you'll unlock certain unit that is built for them, basically, and you can upgrade them following that sort of group. And I really like that way of doing things. Instead of having to send your unit back to your place, they will automatically upgrade once they'll all upgrade. So if you've got a whole bunch of Marines and they upgrade to the next level, let me just have a quick look. So, no, that's not it, is it? The soldier upgrades from Marine. Say I get to Sentinel, for instance, basically like a stormtrooper or something like that. Looks like it. They will basically be pushed all into that group, so they'll all upgrade to the Sentinel, which I think is a pretty decent kind of idea. They're all at Gunner at the moment. They'll all then move to the next level, which I quite like. And the same for every other physical unit. There are aeroplanes or fighter jets or whatever, fighters, you've got gunboats, you've got carriers at a later point when you unlock them in the technologies, and you've got a variety of other infantry and alien units, because you can get alien units. You haven't seen much of the aliens really, because after a certain period of time, aliens become pointless. They become the kind of the in-joke of the game, because they just get effed up. They just get killed almost straight away, which is disappointing, because it would be cool if there was some form of... I mean, there are bases, alien bases, or alien hives as they are called, and it would be nice if they grew, if you didn't get to them, that they grew and grew until they covered a lot of more ground. I think that would be like think of it like Starship Troopers sort of deal. If you don't deal with them, they'll just rage against you and they'll keep trying to hit you. And I really do think I'm missing that sort of feature, because that's what I was expecting when I was starting to play this game. I was thinking, I've heard that the aliens are really, really bad. The only really bad aliens are the worms, the big siege worms, which will do a shit ton of damage to anything that comes into his path. But the other aliens don't really do that, and that's a little disappointing. I also would really love like a Starship Trooper mod to come out of it. I really do think there's someone out there that will make a Starship Trooper mod. You heard it here first here, folks. So that's what I'm hoping. Let's move this on a bit. I'm just sitting here now. So my intrigue has fallen in Freeland, which means that people can't actually do stuff in my area anymore, which is nice, because my guy is about to turn up there, and that would mean that he will be counter intelligence. You've also got this really decent thing actually. They're like a project. You switch the project, and if you've got any agents at home in your headquarters, they can actually do stuff for you rather than just sitting there doing F all. And it comes really useful when you are starting to do level 4 and level 5 stuff, because one of the projects increases the chance of your operation's success for each agent in the headquarters. Basically it means that if you've got one agent that's doing some really decent work somewhere, if you stick the rest of your agents in the HQ, they will basically root for him, which is the best way to describe it. I think it's basically like a system where the more people you have there, the more chance of it succeeding is the short form. Trade stuff is very, very similar to, in fact it's almost identical to Civilization 5, so you don't need to hear about that. There are these little bases or stations which open up fairly early on for you to trade with. That's really all they are good for, is to trade with. They will get attacked by aliens as well, I've noticed, which is pretty cool actually. The way that you'll see in your bar when it comes up, giving you a notification that your trade route's been destroyed, and you're thinking, where the hell's that come from? And you press it, and it basically, the station just disappeared as if it wasn't even there in the first place, which I think is pretty cool.
Seraphine.
Let me just go on to the next kind of phase. A lot of these are very self-explanatory, you know, culture and bonuses to health and bonuses to money and all this sort of stuff. Now, before I do this next bit, I want to explain something that's pretty good actually. They've added this quest and victories screen, which allows you to complete quests and such, and you get bonuses for doing such. Now, these are really good if you don't pay attention to them. You just do them. You don't go after a certain thing, you just do them and you get bonuses for them, like this. Spy Master and Commander. Do you want 15 plus 15 city strength from command centers, or do you want an extra agent from command centers? Well, I'm not going to be doing much of this stuff, so I'm going to say 15 strength. There you go. You've completed a quest. I wasn't even thinking about doing it. I just ended up doing it in the end. The next thing you'll notice in this screen is that there is a victory screen. This is a really, really good screen because it shows you how far away people are from completing the task. I managed to take someone's capital, this Le Coeur, which is from the French people. I can't remember the name of the sponsor. I've captured one of the capital city, which means that we all get a step up apart from the Frenchy team. All these other ones as well, the Transcendent Victories and the Contact, they've all got step-by-step progress bars, which is a really good way of basically saying this is what you need to do to get to the next stage in trying to win. Lasercom Satellite, for instance, does about 3. So Emancipation and Promised Land both need the Lasercom Satellite. So it would seem like a good idea to research Lasercom Satellite. Transcendence, you need to unlock certain technologies. Contact, you need to basically discover the progenitor signal. That's basically the exploration type deal. Now, out of the 4 or 5 games that I've played through so far, I've won 3, lost 2. All on Mercury difficult. So it is still quite difficult if you don't pay attention to what you're doing. I agree with. I have no idea what you said there. So yeah, I've had 2 people ask me on Steam whether or not they should buy this game, and I say wait until Christmas to buy it, unless you absolutely love Civilization. If you love Civilization, which I do, is one of the reasons why I pre-ordered the game, because I've got 220 hours in Civilization 5 and countless in all the others. It was a common sense moment for me to buy it. If I had have waited, I probably wouldn't have been so quick to pre-order this game, because this game doesn't feel particularly like a new game. It feels more like a really good DLC, or what I like to call a really good add-on expansion pack. Back in when Civilization 4 came out, there were some staggered expansion packs to the game, Civilization 4, back a few years ago. Those expansion packs added new bits of materials, a bit like Civilization 5. What they did, they, instead of giving you DLC, they gave you the add-on packs or the expansion packs, which is something that I prefer the term, because you get more than just a piece of DLC. You get more and more and more stuff, which I think is, I think, in all honesty, I'm disappointed with the size of this compared to what it should have been. Because also as well, when I saw on Steam how actually big the download was, at 2.7 gigabytes, that's actually quite small these days. It really is quite small. And I can't help but hide my frustration. Because Diplomacy, although they've got this really decent screen here that tells you why they're annoyed at you or why they're happy with you, the actual interaction screens are pretty much exactly the same as what you'd get from Civilization 5. And it disappoints me. It really disappoints me how kind of DLC this feels. This feels like DLC, or actually no. Let's give it its. Let's be more positive than that. It feels like this is an add-on pack, like Colonization for Civilization 4. That's what it feels like. This feels like what Colonization did to Civilization 4. This is what it feels like. So, I know this has taken a while, like 20 minutes or whatever, to get to this final kind of review phase or section. Is it worth the money? No, it isn't worth the money. It's worth waiting until Christmas, see if there's a Christmas deal on it. At least drop the price some. Because I just think it's not worth it. I really don't think it's worth it. And on top of the fact that it's not worth it, there are only 8 nations or 8 sponsors, and I think that's pretty shit, to be honest. I think that's really kind of... I'm fairly disappointed with that, so if you haven't already noticed. Anyway, I haven't decided whether or not I'm going to do a series of videos about this. It's possible that I won't, and if that is the case, then this is the last video you'll see of it. I may or may not. We'll see. If and when they release patches for the resolution and such, I'm sure they will at some point. And they know they've done something wrong, because you shouldn't have this problem at all. Yeah, we'll go from there. So this is me, Briggsall, signing out. I hope you enjoyed the video. This is all my opinion, by the way, based on relative facts that I know about this game through my experience of playing it and through playing the other Civilization 5s. Please feel free to comment about what I'm saying, whether you agree or disagree, and please keep it civil, because I know some people get really, really upset about when someone gives an opinion that they don't agree with. So please keep it civil, and see you next time. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.